Hello and welcome into another edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast, coming at you live on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account, and also Instagram tonight as well. So wherever you're at, thanks for being with us. We do this every Wednesday night throughout the Idaho high school football season, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time, every Wednesday night right here on IdahoSports.com. You can go back and watch the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast anytime on replay at those three destinations as well, Facebook, YouTube, and X. You can also listen to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast online at IdahoSports.com by clicking on the Prepcasts tab at the top of the homepage, or also on your favorite podcast app, wherever you download and subscribe to podcasts. Could be Apple, could be Spotify, could be Stitcher, could be whatever. So as you are hanging out tonight, we want to hear from you, the 8-Man fans. This is why we do the show, is for you, the 8-Man community. You got a favorite team, coach, player you want to shout at? You got a question for us? Throw it in the chat. We'll throw it up on the screen. We also ask, if you're hanging out live tonight, could you please like, share, and follow? This will help everyone else find this a little easier on replay amongst all the other stuff going on social media. So without further ado, my name is Brandon Bainey, but really you came here to hear from our Idaho 8-Man experts. Let's introduce you to our first one tonight, hitting leadoff from the heart of Idaho, Cary, right smack dab in the center. It is Coach Lane Kirkland. What's going on, Coach?
Hey, good to be here with y'all tonight, and good to talk some football. It's kind of been a long week for our family, but we're making things happen and working through it. But football never stops, and good to be able to talk about that tonight. And the finals coming up, quarterfinals coming our way, with lots of action in the game. So let's talk about that tonight.
For sure. I know the Cary High community did lose one of their own this week in a tragic accident. Our thoughts and condolences are certainly with all of you over there in Cary, and I'm sure everybody else echoes those sentiments as well. Here we go. Our first comment in the chat tonight, Coach. It's from a fellow coach, Monty Madrell. Go Lewis County Eagles 2026. He's already looking ahead to next season, Coach.
That's enthusiasm, and I love it, man. Start scheming right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We did our final farewell to the Lewis County Eagles last week. And as a reminder, as we talk about all of the teams that were eliminated from the playoffs this week, we will do a final farewell for each of those teams also. Just kind of one last tip of the cap, as it were, to what was an outstanding season for each of these 8 teams that fell in the opening round of the postseason. Okay, usually we're joined by Will Henneke, the owner, proprietor of Idaho 8-Man social media accounts on both X and Instagram. He said he might be able to make it tonight, but if he did, it was going to be late. We may see him, we may not. He's been kind of grumpy the last couple of times he's been on the show. He might be holding out for a better contract, Coach.
Well, baseball's over. I don't know if his team was the Dodgers or not. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what he's going to do tonight.
I really think he was scared to make his predictions because I was going to make everybody fill out their bracket from the quarterfinals on tonight. But
it's been a rough year for him, that's for sure.
That's right. A distant third in the pick'em contest we did during the regular season. So it'll be coaching night tonight. And if Will shows up, we'll just treat that as a nice bonus. So we're really going to need the fans watching at home to interact and ask us questions tonight. Otherwise, it'll just be a nice conversation with me and Coach Kirkland. We start the show, as always, with our game of the week. Oh, here's another great comment here from Jaron Draper. Go Grace. Gavin Draper is a beast. Yes, the Grace Grizzlies, I hope, enjoyed their bye week last week. Probably went and scouted who they thought their next opponent was going to be. So we'll talk about that quarterfinal matchup coming up. But first, we got to look back at what happened in the week that was. We had some really interesting first-round games throughout the state of Idaho. Really, only one clear-cut winner for our game of the week. It was the game I was at, Coach Kirkland, in Silverton on Friday night. This wild back and forth affair between Wallace and Salmon River. You see the final score here, 64-58. Coach, I'm not joking. It was, I had a full sheet of paper. I was writing down the scoring plays, and I had to flip it over like midway through the third quarter and start writing on the backside of the page. I mean, these teams combined for over 100 points. The quarterbacks combined for 11 touchdowns. Now, 8 of those came from Cooper Miller, 3 from Blake Shepard of Salmon River. I mean, this was just a fun game.
Yeah, that looks like a high-scoring affair. I'm sure nobody punted. We know that Salmon River never punts, and so that didn't happen. But a heck of a game, man! Some amazing stats, stat line from these guys from both teams, and slugging it out to the very end. How did this one finish, Brandon?
So Salmon River had the ball late. So Cooper Miller scores his fifth and final rushing touchdown inside of 3 minutes to go to give Wallace the 64-58 lead. And all night, every time a team would score, somebody else would come down the field in short succession and score. And it just seemed back and forth. It was going to be one of those games where whoever had the ball last was going to win. That was Salmon River. They start moving the ball down the field. They convert on a huge fourth down pass. They basically get into Wallace territory. They get to about the 17-yard line or so, and from there, they just bog down and can't quite find that last play they need. And so Salmon River turns it over on downs inside the Wallace 20-yard line, inside of a minute to play, and the Miners basically then were able to run out the clock from there. But really, this was your. So we know some of the 8-man teams in Idaho, Coach, are blessed enough to be able to lean on several talented playmakers, and like Garden Valley comes to mind, or Council, or Cary. This was just a good old-fashioned, here's our two studs, Cooper Miller and Hank Larson for Wallace. Here's our two studs, Blake Shepard and Riley Davis for Salmon River. And it was the stars making the star plays. I mean, you see Riley Davis, 153 yards, 5 touchdowns rushing, also had 79 yards and a touchdown receiving. Malachi Cable, just a sophomore, he played really well for Salmon River, made some huge catches down the field. He had 2 touchdowns. And then, at the time, in the moment, I didn't have time to process all of the final stats. We always hand out an IdahoSports.com player of the game to who we thought was the most outstanding player. I gave it to Hank Larson from Wallace because, I mean, look at 11 catches, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had a fumble recovery on defense. And I thought, well, I can't remember the last time a wide receiver had over 300 yards in a game. Can you, Coach?
No, that's a lot. That's a huge amount. 325. That's over 30 yards carry or a catch, and an amazing stat line there. And Cooper Miller having a huge night, totaling 621 by himself there, moving it around on the ground and through the air. I think that might be the most yards by a single player contributed in a game this year in 8-man. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. And so looking back on it, I probably should have went with Cooper Miller as my IdahoSports.com player of the game. But in the moment, I didn't really process just how well he had played. I mean, that's just an incredible performance.
Well, by a receiver, because most things in 8-man football are on the ground. That I think was a great choice to award Hank with that player of the game award, because who knows when that's going to happen again, but you never know. It could be next game, the way they sling that ball around.
Yeah, definitely could. So congratulations to Wallace. The Miners improved to 8-2 on the season. That says Garden Valley. That should say Salmon River. Look at that first graphic. I already made a mistake, so good thing Will's not here to point that out. Salmon River finishes 6-4. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to Marley Pierce again for Wallace, 20 tackles and 1 sack, leading that Wallace defense, which was just phenomenal there. So great job all around there between Wallace and Salmon River. Really a shame that someone had to lose this contest. Wallace Miners Athletics says, what a game. We appreciate you coming out, Brandon, and can't go wrong with Hank the Tank. That's Hank Larson there. So you got to like that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And kind of coming up with the defensive stop against the Savages says something about the Miners, that they're for real, and they can bring it and get a stop when needed. So that's pretty cool. Definitely.
Okay. Unfortunately, that means it's time for our final farewell to the Salmon River Savages. They put together a really fine season after, it had been a while since they had been to the playoffs, a couple of years, Coach. They go 6-4 this year. They get a win over Garden Valley. That was kind of their signature win this year. Ty Medley in his 7th season. I got to meet him in person for the first time on Friday night, which was great. Really nice guy. And really, by the end of the game, the 2 3-star players you see listed here, Riley Davis, the senior, I believe the only senior on this year's team. Everybody else is coming back. including Blake Shepard, the junior quarterback DB. You could tell those were the two guys that were, pretty much handling the ball because the field was kind of wet. It was kind of muddy. And by the end of the game, Coach, their uniforms were brown. Everybody else was still white, but those two, Davis and Shepard, it was brown.
I thought you were going to say everybody matched and was wearing brown by the end of the night. You can always tell who does the majority of work there. And Coach Medley has had a great season. He really is a good dude and very enthusiastic, and has brought this team out of, from the depths, so to speak, to have a banner season. And I don't think they need to hang their heads there, but they're going to start over fresh. They'll miss Riley Davis, of course, but with the quarterback on hand and the experience that he's gained there and the enthusiasm that's built now, the Savages are going to be for real, especially with the changes coming next year with the alignment.
Yeah, that's really going to open things up where Garden Valley's moving up, Tri-Valley's moving up, so Salmon River's got a chance to really emerge next season. And again, depth is always going to be the question for Salmon River. They only had, I think, 4 or 5 guys available on the sideline this past Friday night, and pretty much everybody was going both ways. So
right.
Congratulations to Salmon River, a really fine season there. Okay, I thought the next biggest story from the opening round of the 1A playoffs, we'll cover everything 1A here in our first section of the show tonight, Coach, was Garden Valley going on the road and knocking out Chalice, the champions from the Rocky Mountain Conference, 38-8. Chalice finishes the year 4-6. They were on the right side of that 3-way tiebreaker between Rockland and North Gem. All 3 of them tied for the Rocky Mountain Conference title. Chalice won the differential on tiebreak points. And so they were the lone team from the East to get into the playoffs. They had a home game. I thought coming in, I actually thought Garden Valley was the better team. I thought Garden Valley was going to win, and they certainly proved it here with a 38-8 road win.
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to get those wins on the road, and during the playoffs when everybody's hungry, it looked like the Wolverines showed up to play ball, and that they proved that they were for real and wanted some more action against the Council this next weekend. That'll be fun to take a look at it and see what's happening there. But once again, Garden Valley passing it around and moving it around to a lot of different people, this time with only a couple of quarterbacks involved, Payson Kelly doing a majority of the work there. But, Chalice put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs and in that spot there and put 8 points on the board against a good Garden Valley team. So nothing to hang their heads there. But Coach Yearsley marching on one more time into the quarterfinals.
He always seems to do this every single year with Garden Valley. Just finds a way. Doesn't matter what the seed is. Doesn't matter what the record is. Garden Valley just seems to always find a way to advance to the second or maybe even the third weekend of the football postseason. And you're right. We kind of joked early on this year, Garden Valley was playing 4 or 5 different kids at quarterback. And I think Coach Yearsley knows, okay, it's the playoffs now. I got to kind of hitch my wagon to 1 or 2 guys. Payson Kelly and Maddox Miller were the 2 primary quarterbacks. Miller threw for 38 yards and a touchdown. Also had 1 reception for 21 yards from Payson Kelly, but it was really Kelly's game here. 106 yards and a touchdown on the through the air, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and they spread the wealth. I mean, Tristan Leslie had a nice game. Keegan Welsh, you see the totals there. Maxon Yearsley had 3 catches for 38 yards and 3 tackles and a fumble recovery. I think Maxon Yearsley, I think his biggest value to Garden Valley at this point, because of all the weapons they have on offense, coaches, I actually think it's on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, he seems to be involved and listed with a lot of tackles and contributions on defense each week as we have this podcast. So that defense wins games, and you got to get those fumble recoveries when the ball is loose.
No doubt. Chalice's lone score came on a Teague Erickson kick return for a touchdown. And so our final farewell to the Chalice Vikings, Coach. They finished the season 4-6. Les Webb just completes his 3rd season as the Chalice head coach. You see there some of the, and they're going to lose 2 high-impact studs, Garrison Applegate, the senior wide receiver, Teague Erickson, the senior kind of do-it-all playmaker for Chalice. But look at that 3rd 3-star player there, Owen Thane, just a freshman, played most of the season at quarterback. They had a freshman running back this year in Gus Zerga. So for Chalice, the future is bright. The question is, can they get more players to come out for the team despite being a 2A school officially playing at the 1A level? they still had a hard time getting kids to come out for the team. And now that they're moving back up, it's going to be critical for them to find more players that want to play the game of football.
Yeah, time to go recruiting. Maybe take the checkbook just a little bit. But with a mascot looking like that, there's got to be some Vikings available to be on the football team, don't you think?
Yes, and there's good athletes in the school, and there's just cross country is really the only other sport
right
that's offered. So, yeah, I just got to get those kids out, and I do think Chalice has good potential, but they're moving into a league with Butte County and Grace next year, so the task will get a little bit more difficult. All right, let's go to our third first-round game from the opening round of the 1A playoffs here. This was a Saturday game in Cambridge. Really a shame that Hanson and Tri-Valley, Tri-Valley 7-2, Hanson was 7-1 coming into the game, and this was the first-round matchup. Okay, this seems like maybe it could have been a quarterfinal matchup, maybe even a semifinal based on the records. Tri-Valley wins 64-20, Coach, but this doesn't really tell the story. Hanson had the lead midway through the second quarter at 20-14, or 20-12, something like that, 20-14, I think it was.
Right.
And then they were driving to take the lead again right before halftime, but disaster, a pick six for Tri-Valley. And then on their opening drive of the second half, another pick six thrown by Hanson. And from there, Tri-Valley kind of rolled. You wonder if those two plays don't happen, could Hanson continue punching with Tri-Valley?
Yeah, I was watching this game while it was being broadcast, while I was putting some pavers around my hot tub out back, and peeked in every play. And I was really impressed with the game plan that the Hanson Huskies brought to the table in throwing the ball a lot more than they had throughout this season. They'd thrown it to get themselves third down conversions that were a little long and some fourth down conversions. But right off the bat, going long, hitting some guys, catching passes, and really making a dent in the Tri-Valley defense. And I'm sure was like, they're going to run the ball every single play with Reichel and Denny. But it didn't last as long as they wanted to. Those interceptions started to add up, and Tri-Valley kind of got that figured out about, like you say, right before halftime. And then it kind of unraveled after that for the Huskies. But I think they could be proud of the game that they brought, the awesome season that they had experienced. And that's going to echo through the hallways of Hanson High School this next season. And if they can continue to get the numbers and enthusiasm out, they definitely have the coaching staff in Coach Lapp to get it done again.
Yeah, just the second playoff appearance in program history for Hanson, joining that 2020 squad. And for Tri-Valley, the law firm of Wagoner, George, and Noah did their usual thing. 132 yards, 2 touchdowns for Wagoner on the ground, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns for George, and then Noah, 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not quite the gaudy totals we're used to seeing, but it was enough to get the win, and that will get more and more difficult with each passing round of the postseason. And then really, some of the defensive standouts, Jace Wagoner, 9 tackles, Eli Noah with 8 tackles. Elias DeVries had 8 tackles and a pick. Monty Ingram had 9 tackles and 2 picks. And then Corbin Talbert, 3 tackles and 2 sacks. So really, we talked a lot about the Tri-Valley offense this year. But again, I think it's their defense that's going to carry them, to the semifinals and beyond potentially.
Right. And I know Coach Wagoner has talked all season. He says we got to fix our defense if we're going to be a championship run kind of team. And I think they did against a good Hanson team that they've been able to control the clock all season long. And the defense held very strong in this game, and a great tune-up for what's to come this weekend.
So let's take a look at our final farewell here for the Hanson Huskies. What a banner season. Toby Lapp in his second season, 7-2 finish for the Hanson Huskies this year. And they do lose a couple of impact seniors here. And again, when on these graphics, when it says 3-star players, these are all the players that were nominated or won an Idaho 8-man 3-star award throughout the season. Will Henneke does this every weekend. Hands out his top 3 performers basically from the weekend, and then there's a big list of honorable mentions. So these are all the guys that were either honorable mention or a 3-star winner this year. Paul Lyman and Benny Reichel are the 2 seniors that they lose, but 3 really solid juniors. Grayson Denny, the quarterback, Carson Mulberry, the fullback, Dan Gibson, the tight end. They all play on the defensive side of the ball as well. If they could just find someone to take over at running back for Benny Reichel, I think Hanson's going to be right there again next year, Coach.
Yeah, and there's some good kids coming up through their junior high. They've certainly accomplished some awesome things this season, and have a lot to look forward to next year. They certainly got school spirit, I'll tell you that, and I think they're going to bring a great game again next season.
Yep, it was a fantastic year for Hanson, and nothing to be ashamed about there with the way it finished. And then our final game of the 1A opening round of the playoffs, Coach. This was a good old-fashioned White Pine League rematch between Genesee and Timberline. The Bulldogs were very motivated to put this one to bed early, and they blitzed the Spartans 66-26. Cameron Holmes, 188 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Noah Bowman ran for 175 yards and 2 scores, caught a ball too. And how about Carson Warner Hall, the 99-yard pick six? Doesn't get any bigger than that.
Yeah, I hope he got to sit the next play out, because that's a long way to run. And certainly a memorable one all the way to the end zone. Bulldogs putting up a lot of points in this one, and that 8-1 season showing through. And, Coach Hanson has had a great season there at Genesee this year, and continues to make that run and keeping that dream alive.
Yeah, Jackson Banks threw 2 passing touchdowns as well, one to Noah Bowman, one to Preston Cass. He's kind of that tight end, but he lines up at offensive guard, and then they like to sneak him out occasionally, into the pattern as an eligible receiver. It's worked a couple of times this year, including against Wallace earlier this season, and that's who they will play in the next round. For Timberline, Corbin Christopherson, 2 touchdown passes, one to Aries Maberly, one to Callan Bonner. Maberly also scored once on the ground. So here's our final farewell to the Timberline Spartans. A 2-6 record, but they played some heavy hitters. I mean, they played Genesee, they played Tri-Valley, they played Prairie this year, they played Pomeroy, Washington, which I believe is still undefeated. So Timberline took it on the chin a little bit, but they did so knowing that, okay, if we put together a tough schedule, maybe that'll help our strength of schedule enough to get us into the playoffs, and it did. Pat Christopherson just finished his 8th season, and I think this is the first time that I can remember in the last couple of years, Coach, where Timberline didn't have to forfeit any games at halftime because of injuries and not enough bodies available. I think they were able to play all of the games on their schedule all the way through, and that's a big win.
Yeah, that shows a lot of progress there. It shows that Coach Christopherson is working the kids in school and having fun with them, teaching them some good life lessons, and building the program year after year. And that certainly is a great thing to be able to finish the conference and be in the playoffs. Compliments to them for stepping their game up and scheduling some of those harder games to get into the Max Preps rankings. We talked about that all year long and all last year, and it worked.
So that is Christopherson will be back next year for his senior season, one last ride. They do lose Aries Maberly, though, and so that is going to be a difficult one for sure. So we'll see how they replace that production there at Timberline.
Right.
All right, Coach, it is on to the 1A quarterfinals here. Let's take a look at this bracket. And here's the matchup. So and I always tell everybody, make your screen full size so you can see the bracket a little easier. The 4 teams that had byes in the opening round were Council, the number 1 overall seed, champions of the Long Pin Conference in District 3. We had Court of Christ, the number 4 seed overall, the champions of the North Star League in District 1. Cary, the number 5 seed, the champions of the Sawtooth Conference out of District 4. And then Deary, the number 7 seed, they were the champions of the White Pine League up in District 2. Now, this bracket's going to look kind of funky here, and I'll admit I pride myself on kind of being up to date on how the brackets are formed and everything. I was really thrown for a loop when I found out that Deary, despite being the number 7 seed and Tri-Valley being the 2 seed, Deary actually gets to host the Titans up in North Idaho. And you can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat here, but my understanding is that the teams get seeded 1 through 8 based on Max Preps ranking. That's why Tri-Valley is the number 2 seed. They are number 2 in the Max Preps rankings at the end of the regular season. But the caveat is that if you are a higher seeded team and you are playing a district champion, the district champion gets to host that game. So like Deary and Tri-Valley is really the only matchup where that applies. Deary, the number 7 seed, gets to host Tri-Valley, the 2 seed. And you might be thinking, well, shouldn't all the district champions host a game then? Like, what about Cary? How come Cary's got to schlep all the way up to Coeur d'Alene? Well, this is a matchup of 2 district champions. And I believe in the really small print, it says if 2 district champions are playing each other, the higher seeded district champion gets to host. So it's kind of confusing, Coach, a little bit.
Yeah, it sure is. And it was only a few years ago that they changed the verbiage of that to clarify, because it was happening the other way where the lower seed was hosting once in a while. So yeah, being a conference champ was a good thing, except for the Cary Panthers. But they're excited to travel north nonetheless to play on that beautiful field. And Deary won at the right time to be able to host. So compliments to them. No
doubt. All right, Coach, I'll let you pick which of these 4 quarterfinal matchups you want to talk about first.
Oh, let's go back to the regular season matchup between Council and Garden Valley. That should be fun.
Okay. So Garden Valley and Council, there's a lot of history in this game as well. I mean, certainly this year, right? Council didn't have any troubles with Garden Valley. The final score when they played earlier this season was 40-8. That was in Garden Valley, but let's not forget, it was in this exact round 1 year ago, same exact scenario. Council was hosting Garden Valley in the quarterfinals, and Garden Valley got them in a road upset. And so for Council, they have been snake bitten so many times in the postseason. Will they find a way to finally break that curse, as it were, and get to the semifinals? Last year, Garden Valley got them 22-20. It was a heartbreaking loss. I'm sure the Lumberjacks are locked in and ready to go here.
Yeah, it's always interesting for those second time rounds of games between each other, and both coaches are going to make adjustments to that, and we'll see if Garden Valley has the ticket to ride one more year and can knock off the Lumberjacks. But the Lumberjacks certainly showed they were hungry in that regular season matchup, so I think that's going to be a tough road to go up.
I think the key in this game is going to be, can Garden Valley run the football against a really stout Council defense? Remington Crowell does such a good job on that defensive line. Hatfield and some of the other linebackers really scrape and fill well. If Garden Valley can run the ball, and that's a problem Garden Valley's had all year, being able to run the ball consistently, but they're starting to do it a little more with the QB, little QB run with Payson Kelly. If Garden Valley can get the run game going, I think they have a shot here, but I think Council is a team that is certainly built for postseason success. The last time Council got to the semifinals, Coach, was all the way back in 2014. So it's been a minute, 11 years for the Lumberjacks. It'd be nice to see them break through and get to the semifinals.
Yeah, I'm sure that's been on the radar for a long time, especially these last few seasons. But they do have a lot more skill players on this team this year that have a ton of speed. And I know that the determination to get to all the way to the title game is on their radar. We'll see if they can follow through this time.
In Garden Valley, of course, their last trip to the semifinals was last year. So we'll see if they can go. I think it would be 3 in a row, actually, for Garden Valley there. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about Deary getting to host Tri-Valley, even though they're the number 7 and they're the number 2 here in the chat. It's the same, and we'll talk about this when we get to the 2A bracket. Same as Kamei traveling to Raft River. Kamei is the number 2 seed, Raft River number 7. Go Cubs. So yes, it happened in both brackets, ironically enough, in that 2 versus 7 matchup. So very interesting wrinkle. Okay, where do you want to go next?
Well, let's go to Coeur d'Alene and Cary. How about these 2 conference champions?
I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend, not just in 8-man football, but I think in the entire state. 2 incredibly evenly matched teams, 2 teams that have no shortage of playmakers, both offensively and defensively. 2 teams that, Cary is the team that's won 5 million state championships and has the postseason pedigree. Coeur d'Alene is the new kid on the block. It's their second season of football, period. They went 3-5 last year in year 1. This year, a remarkable season, conference champions, and hosting the first playoff game in school history. Now, this is going to be at the Mariman Health Core Center in Worley. That's actually where the Lakeside Knights play their home games. Coeur d'Alene does not have a home field per se, but they do play a lot at the Mariman Health Core Center. This is artificial turf, Coach. So have the Cary Panthers played on turf recently?
This last year, I believe, since we haven't played Lighthouse this last season. So that'll be, I think, an advantage to the Panthers, who are always quick. That'll be awesome for Stockton Sears footing. There shouldn't be any slips and trips unless it's a little bit rainy, but I think it's clearing on Saturday up there. Yeah, it is a pretty good matchup, I think, for these two teams. And we'll see if Court of Christ can hang with Carey and step onto that big stage and handle what happens at that particular level of play. Now, both these teams have been off for a couple of weeks. And I know that when we had a week off, which I really didn't enjoy, but whenever we had a week off, we rested a little bit. We had shorter practices. We had greater detail in some of our practices. We had a little more fun activities. And we did our best to make these players as hungry as possible to hit somebody else and to be prepared for that big game, because everything matters from now on. You lose, you're out. So the Panthers are going to be pretty hungry, I think, traveling up to Court of Christ. But tons of respect for Coach Kellen Clemens up north. I know he'll have a scheme and a game ready to go, and it'll be who can coach that 8-man game the best up there.
Yeah, I should mention the times for these. Garden Valley and Council are going to play Friday night, 5 o'clock in Council. Carey and Court of Christ, Saturday, 1 o'clock. That's 12 o'clock for all you Panther fans back in the Mountain Time Zone. 1 o'clock Pacific Time on Saturday. That game will be on IdahoSports.com. You can tune in to watch Carey take on Court of Christ. Here's where I think the rubber will meet the road. Court of Christ has not played a defense as good as Carey's this year. They did play Logos. That was their one loss this year so far. But this Carey defense is unreal with Will Park and the Saili boys and Stockton Sears. And so my question is, how will the Court of Christ offensive line do, paving the way for John Danke, the electrifying running back? He doesn't need much to hit the edge and be gone, but you got to get a little something. And so I'm also curious to see how these Carey tacklers do chasing down a guy like Danke in the open field.
You know, you don't like chasing anybody down, because that means it's already 30 yards too late. But I think if you can get a guy slowed down and get through the O-line and control the edges, that's how you control a fast guy like Danke. And he is dangerous. And Carey's played a few teams that have a guy like that and have handled him fairly decent, except for old Vargas from Valley the other week. But it'll be a good matchup, and the Carey's defense has shown to be one of the best in 1A football for sure this year.
Yeah. The last time, so Court of Christ, obviously this is their first playoff game in school history, so there's not really much to talk about in terms of, well, the last time they made the semis was never, because they've never played. Carey, I think it would be more instructive to say the last time they didn't make the semifinals was actually just 2 years ago in 2023, when they were playing up a level at 1A D1, which is now 2A. But prior to that, you have to go all the way back to 2015, the last time Carey did not make at least the semifinals. When was the last time Carey had to make a trip this far north, though, for the playoffs, Coach?
We went up to Kendrick in a few years. Let's see, we went up there in 18, I think it was, and in 19, and then later on, I think in 21. So yeah, we've been up there a few times, but not this early in the season for sure. It'll be a good journey. They're ready to go. Got the flat nose ready, and the kids were showing me battery packs for their big screens all the way up there. So that should be fun.
I think I found our podcast title, Battery Packs for the Big Screens. In your coaching career as an assistant or as a head coach at Carey, how many times did you go to District 1 to play a team?
We only played a District 1 team one time in the state championship, and that was in 2008. Kootenai was 11-0. We were 11-0, and we won at Moscow. University of Idaho 46-14 that year. Ben Shannon was one of those running backs, and those guys were amazing. He got hurt early in the first quarter. I think hyperextended his elbow. That helped the Panther cause for sure. But we were really focused that year and brought our A game, and that was a lot of fun. So Carey's been in the playoffs now. I believe it's 20 or 21 seasons in a row, which is an amazing stat.
Yeah, the last time Carey missed the playoffs, I think, was 1996, if I'm looking at this right. So A long time ago.
I'll go with that.
I could be missing a year in there somewhere. Oh, maybe 2003-04. They also missed out. So sorry.
Yep.
Not quite as good there. But never in District 1, like the Kibbe Dome in Moscow's District 2. You never had to go actually all the way to the very top of the state, District 1.
No, we never did. Just to Moscow was it.
Okay. New territory for the Panthers. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to this back half of the bracket here. Bottom half. Which matchup you want to tackle first here, Coach?
Well, let's go to Genesee and Wallace.
Okay. Really fun. The rematch. I mean, these teams, when they played, it was earlier this year in Silverton, and this was the game of the week. I mean, Genesee was number 3 in the Max Preps rankings. Wallace was number 4. The winner of that game we thought was going to be a top 3 team when it was all said and done. Genesee got the win 22-18. Genesee came into that game with a game plan of, we are going to run the ball. We are going to control the clock. We are going to keep Cooper Miller and that offense off the field. And they executed it very well. They pretty much ran the ball with Noah Bowman, and really it was Carson Warner Hall who did a lot of the heavy lifting in that game. Jackson Banks played phenomenally well. And yet that was a game where Wallace came out of it thinking, boy, we had the ball inside their red zone 4 or 5 times, came up empty every single time. We had a fumble at the 6-yard line. Cooper Miller had broken free for a long run, and there was nothing but green grass in front of him and just slipped on the grass and fell at about the 18-yard line. So Wallace is going, and again, you have to actually go execute. But Wallace came out of that game saying, man, if we had just done 1 or 2 things, or 1 or 2 plays had gone our way, we probably win that game. Well, that's nice and everything, but Genesee's the team that actually got the win, and now Genesee gets to host them on their field. It should be a good matchup.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be interesting to see the coaching adjustments that are made on both sides, especially the defense, and to see if they can continue to keep that score down and control Wallace putting those points on the board. But hey, both teams last week putting some massive points up on the board, and so their offenses are both running smooth with some high octane. Like I say, it's going to come down to who can make those best defensive calls and stop each other and keep each other out of those out of the end zone. And those red zone stops, man, sometimes you might get caught on one and not get it across, and you call yourself on it as a coach from the sideline going, dang it, that was my fault. I should have done this. And then you get back to basics and you're able to convert those things. So sometimes offensive play caller also has to be on their game to make sure that that only happens once, or hopefully not at all.
Yeah, my question is, which team can get a pass rush home? Because each of these quarterbacks, Jackson Banks for Genesee, Cooper Miller for Wallace, if you give them time, they are absolutely going to burn you with a big play deep. Genesee had that 93-yard touchdown pass from Banks to Noah Bowman in the win over Wallace earlier this year. Can Reese Williams and Marley Pierce get home for Wallace? And on the same side for Genesee, could Jackson Banks and some of those defensive players get after it? Which pass rush is the best might determine who wins this contest. But it's going to be a really fun rematch, no doubt about it. That is Friday night, 5 o'clock in Genesee on IdahoSports.com. And, Coach, I will be at this game broadcasting 2 weeks in a row for the Wallace Miners. So
hey, you should know all the players by name and all their relatives.
That's right. I don't know about the relatives part yet, but we're getting there, no doubt.
Okay.
All right, our final matchup then is Tri-Valley and Deary. The Titans, as the number 2 seed, have to make the trip north to Lewiston. They are going to play at the old Bengal Field. So any fans that are wanting to come up here and travel, this is not the brand new facility that Lewiston High built last year that's got the nice turf and the nice amenities. This is the old Bengal Field on the other side of town. It's a nice field, but it's worn, and this is going to be really interesting. This is the middle game of a triple header on Friday, 3 games in a row, 2 2A games, and then this Tri-Valley Deary game kind of sandwiched in the middle here. So I don't think ultimately the road travel is going to be too terribly difficult for Tri-Valley. Cambridge to Lewiston is not a horrible trip by any stretch. And so the question here is, okay, Deary seems to have found something, Coach. They took Genesee and really smacked them around and ran the ball down their throats the last time we saw them 2 weeks ago to win the White Pine League Championship. Can they do the same once again to Tri-Valley?
Yeah, that Tri-Valley defense is getting a little bit better every week, like we talked about on the show against Hanson. That was a strong run team, and so they've made some serious improvements in that. And you can guarantee that they're going to be stiff there, but also available for that play action. Sometimes you sell out too much for those runs, and you forget about those quick outs or those double move passes down the sideline over the top that can get you once in a while. But Tri-Valley, I think, is going to be able to understand and know what to do in the mud. Now, I know Coach Wagner wasn't around in 2018 when Tri-Valley hosted Butte County in a muddy, sloppy mess in the semifinals, I think it was, and upset Butte County 20-0, and that gave Carey the chance to play Tri-Valley in Middleton for the title. But you got to go straight forward when it's muddy, and by the third game, it's going to be like the Cleveland Browns playing the Cleveland Browns, the mud bowl, as we used to call them. So you kind of have to keep it a little bit simpler if it's going to be sloppy. And is the weather supposed to be bad all week up there, Brandon?
It has been raining nonstop up here in North Idaho. It was downpouring earlier today. So even if it stops raining tomorrow, I don't know if the field will get dried out in time. We'll see. I mean, it's just been a downpour.
Advice for the sideline guy and for the managers: make sure you're carrying around a screwdriver or a cleat cleaner on the sideline and use it frequently, and definitely change those cleats out for the long version, and no metal ones, by the way.
That's right. Tri-Valley made it to the semifinals last season. For Deary, their last trip to the semifinals came in 2017. So a bit of a streak here, 8 years for Deary. And then back to that earlier matchup between Genesee and Wallace. For Genesee, I mean, this was their first trip to the playoffs since 2021. Last time they got to the semifinals was in 2017. They got all the way to the championship game where they took second place overall. Was that one of the years they ran into your Carey Panthers? 2017?
That's when we played Tri-Valley in the championship game, yes.
Okay. So that's the streak there. And then for Wallace, they've got the longest semifinal drought of any of the teams that are playing this weekend. Last time they were in the semifinals was all the way back in 2011, Coach. So we're talking
Wallace.
About
I'd have to go way back on that one.
Yep, 14 years there for Wallace in the state semifinals. Okay, well, since Will isn't here, he was too scared to make his picks. But we're gonna do this, Coach.
Let's go.
Let's make our predictions here. What do you think for our quarterfinal winners?
All right, I've got them highlighted here. We're going to go with Council over Garden Valley, Carey over Court of Christ with their tradition, Tri-Valley over Deary, and I forgot my penny. I was going to flip a coin here because I don't know on this game here. So heads, Wallace calls. It's tails. Genesee is going to win this one.
Okay, interesting. So you've got Council, Carey, Tri-Valley, Genesee. What would your semifinal winners look like potentially? Council and Carey at the top there.
Let's see. Yeah, Council and Carey. Let's go with it.
Okay, I'm going to make you fill it out all the way to the end.
Okay, Council and Carey.
Yeah.
And Tri-Valley versus Genesee.
Yep.
So we're going to go Carey over Council, Tri-Valley over Genesee, and Carey over Tri-Valley for the repeat.
Okay, a little rematch from back in the day there, Carey and Tri-Valley. I like it. Okay, I'm going to go Council. I will go Carey. I will go Tri-Valley. I will take Wallace over Genesee on the road. I will then take Carey and Council. That could be a championship game a lot of years. I will take Carey, and I will take Tri-Valley over Wallace. And then in a state championship game, Carey and Tri-Valley, just to be contrarian, I'll take the Tri-Valley Titans. I think last year, because coming in last year, it was Carey and Dietrich, and we thought, Carey won, so big in the regular season. And Dietrich hung with them, and Carey had to sweat it out and earn that victory. And this Tri-Valley offense kind of reminds me a lot of that Dietrich offense from a year ago. So Could be a shootout for sure. So I'll take Tri-Valley there.
All right. Fair enough.
Okay. We'll see how much we get right here. We'll circle back next week for sure. Okay. Well, that's the 1A conversation, Coach. When we come back, we'll talk 2A. There wasn't much drama in the opening round of the 2A playoffs, but man, some of these quarterfinal matchups I think are going to be pretty outstanding. So we'll talk all of the 2A matchups right after this. You're watching the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
Once again, we have contributed to your ideal college savings program. Love, Grandma and Grandpa.
Ideal. Eventually, they'll appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. I love it.
College costs money.
Welcome back to the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, X account, and Instagram account. Brandon Baney here with Coach Lane Kirkland tonight, and paging Will Henneke. Maybe Will will be able to hop on here, and maybe not. Maybe Will will just have to give us his thoughts in the text thread, and then we'll see how right or wrong he was about all this stuff throughout the week. It is time for our 2A breakdown. Want to remind everybody that the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast is brought to you by Ideal, Idaho College Savings Account. We announced our Ideal 529 contest winner last week, Coach Kirkland. One lucky student from a 2A or 1A school in the state of Idaho received a $529 contribution into an Ideal 529 account, totally free of charge to be used at the next level. College could be a 4-year school, 2-year school, trade school, apprenticeship. Could be used for student loan debts, could be used to pay for books, all sorts of fun stuff. Our winner was Keston Kelly, a 5th grader in the Valley School District down in Hazleton. She came on for a little interview last week and was super excited and grateful for the $529. She wants to be a vet when she grows up, and she said specifically she wants to be a vet on the sandy beaches of Hawaii because she wants to work with turtles. So I think that's pretty cool. And she's quite the dynamo athlete also.
It was a great interview, man. A very intelligent young lady, and I bet she does it too. I bet she's a turtle vet.
Yeah, we're all pulling for her, that is for sure. So even though the contest is ended and we had a lot of people enter and you didn't win, you'll still want to get a 529 account set up through Ideal, especially if you're in high school and college is just around the corner. This is basically an investment tool. You put money in and it grows. And so if you want more information, you can go to idsaves.org. That's idsaves, SAVES.org for more details from Ideal. Big thanks to Ideal. 2nd year in a row we did our 529 giveaway. Huge success for sure. All right, Coach, back to it and the state 2A playoffs here. The best game was the first game. I thought we would just go chronologically because really the games were all kind of spread out throughout the day. So if you were a 2A football fan, you were able to kind of catch a little bit of everything. The first game of the day turned out to be the best one. It was up in Cottonwood. The Prairie Pirates hang on for a narrow win over Valley, 50-44. Prairie got up big in this one and then had to hold their breath as Valley came roaring back in the second half.
Yeah, that's is a tight matchup, a rematch for the season, and almost the same results there, separated by a score between two great longtime power coaches, Coach Ayers and Coach Hasselstrom. And man, this would have been a good one to be at and to watch because of the competitive level there and the gaming, I'm sure, that went on between both ball clubs. One of the stats that kind of stuck out for me that may have been the game changer is those 2 interceptions that were
thrown by Brant Jones.
Yeah, that were thrown by Brant Jones, and may have been that extra possession that the Vikings could have used early on in this game to keep it close and to perhaps get the victory.
Yeah, Levi McElroy had one of the interceptions. Levi Gehring had the other. Gehring had 14 tackles. McElroy had 6 tackles defensively. And really, you see it. Levi Gehring, his fingerprints were all over this game. 22 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Caught a 42-yard touchdown pass and then 14 tackles. And the interception on defense, Chris Shoemaker also did really well. 86 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 9 carries. Cade Quintal struggled a little more than we're used to seeing. Only completed 11 of 28 passes, but hit on some of those home run plays. 302 yards on just 11 completions, Coach, for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, we're seeing that 300 mark again with those 11 shots out to a receiver. Those certainly add up down the sideline and can get you across that goal line in a hurry. One stat I also noticed here was Thomas Vargas. I thought he may carry the ball just a little bit more, have a few more opportunities. He's so explosive. I don't know why that was as few as it was, but been carrying the Valley Vikings for a long time here. But Brant Jones throughout the season has definitely stepped up his game on offense and probably following Vargas through those holes, as he's a good sized blocker, and helped him gain 219 yards on the night. The Vikings coming up just short one more time against Coach Hasselstrom and the Pirates.
Yeah, I think what happened for Valley is they got down so much so quickly, it took them out of that game plan, and they kind of had to throw the ball to try and get back into the contest. And then that led to Brant Jones, and as he's dropping back to pass, scrambling and taking off a little bit more. I can't remember the last time, maybe ever, Thomas Vargas was held below 100 yards rushing in a game that he played the entire contest. So that's a credit to the Prairie defense as well, holding him to just 95 yards and the one touchdown.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, Prairie moving on and showing that White Pine League is for real and establishing themselves into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, it was almost a clean sweep for White Pine League teams. One more shout out. It's not on the screen, but sophomore Lane Mater for Prairie, 16 tackles and 2 sacks. He was the leading tackler and sack man for the Prairie defense there. Nicely done for the Pirates. Okay, so Valley's season concludes, Coach, with a 6-4 mark. It is our final farewell to the Valley Vikings. Brian Ayers just wrapped up his 3rd season, 2nd stint as the Valley head coach. They lose some dudes to graduation here. You see 3 of the 4 3-star players, Austin Stubbs, Thomas Vargas, Daniel Zamudio, all seniors, all moving on. But they do bring back Brant Jones, who really, first-time starter at quarterback this year, I thought really came into his own as the season went along.
Yeah, he really did, and that was a great pick that Coach Ayers established early on in the season, and really brought him along to be a leader, and that's going to help a whole bunch. And I know this was a tight group, as Coach Ayers would describe, and Coach Brian Hardy would describe as well. That I think will continue at Valley High School. They got some really good things going on there, and but once again bowing out a little bit earlier than they wanted to, a little bit like last season.
Yeah, last season their run ended in the quarterfinals to Hagerman. This year, first round to Prairie. Both times, 1-score games. Okay, so 1 hour after the Prairie Valley game kicked off, Kamei kicked off with their game against Glens Ferry. Last night on our Gem State Game Day show, I said Kamei kicked off and then kicked butt. 86-22 the final over the Pilots of Glens Ferry. It was a big day, Coach, when we have to go with the really small font on the Kamei side just to get all those stats in there. Lawson Landmark throws for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. Pretty much everybody who touched the ball, had a touchdown. Everett Oatman, Damian Ochoa, Todd Roberts, Gavin Shaney. I mean, it was a whole cast of characters, and Kamei didn't have to lean on their studs too much in this one.
Yeah, and some stats that poke out to me just a little bit, and you don't have them on your screen, but Kamei with 4 interceptions on the night, really putting the Pilots passing game to rest and capitalizing on those for sure with that 86 points going up on the board. Really not a great contest between these two, but Kamei is really coming on strong and found themselves with Landmark and Oatman and showing, man, those guys are really working well together and doing some great things.
Yep, for sure. Lawson Landmark had a pick, Everett Oatman had a pick, and then Gavin Shaney had 2 picks defensively for the Kamei defense here. Here is, a couple of comments that have come in late here. I missed this one earlier. Wallace Miners Athletics says, we're fired up for another shot at a tough Genesee squad ready to compete. And here's Francisco, Coach, man, must have had a lot of Mando on the team for that many yards. Holy moly. I don't know if that's in reference to Kamei or Valley and Prairie we were talking about earlier, but there was a lot of big yardage totals across the board.
Yeah, there certainly was. And you can tell how small the font is or how bad my eyesight is because those 4 interceptions are listed right there. Or maybe I'm just tired. I'm not sure. But, the Cubs coming up with four picks is pretty significant.
Yeah, really nice game. And like I said, Everett Oatman only touched the ball 7 times on offense. Gavin Shaney only touched it 3 times. Lawson Landmark got out of there after throwing 11 passes and running it 5 times. I mean, this was a nice day at the office for the Cubs. For Glens Ferry, Braden Spriggs throws 2 touchdowns, also throws a pick. Brody Merrill runs for 100 yards and a touchdown. But they just did not have the firepower to match Kamiai on this day. And so we bid our final farewell to the Glens Ferry Pilots, back-to-back postseason appearances after a couple of last-place finishes in what was a really loaded Sawtooth or Snake River Conference over there in District 4. Pilots get back to the playoffs. It ends the exact same way as last year's run did, a first-round loss at Kamiai. This time the weather was a little nicer, and it was on Friday instead of Saturday. But a 4-6 record for the Pilots. They do lose 3 big seniors in Juan Juarez, Brody Merrill, and Henry Thomas. But Braden Spriggs, only a sophomore, and I thought played really well at quarterback and on the defensive side for Glens Ferry this year.
Yeah, he was poking out in the stats the whole season long on both sides of the football. They were really leading his team as a young sophomore. I know his sister, Maddie Spriggs, last year was really great in track and quick and fast, and I think Braden is as well. And that'll be a good weapon for Coach Stewart coming back this next season. And the Pilots have nothing to be ashamed of this year.
For sure. So congratulations to Glens Ferry on another fine season there, 4-6 as they finish. So Prairie and Kamiai were kind of the early games on Friday night, and then we had a game kickoff at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and that was another North Idaho showdown. It was Oakley and Logos, coach, and Logos runs away in this one 62-12. They've kind of, played Joseph Sensing and Baxter Covington in the same backfield all season long. Sometimes Covington takes the snap at quarterback. Sometimes Sensing takes the snap. They both kind of do similar things here. You see they both ran the ball well. Covington, 99 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sensing, 5 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. Completed 3 passes. All 3 passes from Sensing went to Gideon Haney, who had 3 receptions and 3 touchdowns, essentially. I guess one of those passes was from Covington. So Gideon Haney, though, 3 catches, 51 yards, 3 touchdowns. How about that stat line, Coach?
Yeah, 3 catches, 3 TDs. That's a pretty high percentage for those guys getting connected. And a lot of points for the Logos Knights, who just seem to start really catching their wind, I think, right now, and really sailing strong through the seas. Looking forward to hopefully a rematch in their minds with the Kendrick Tigers one more time.
That's right. Hey, look at this in the chat. A real stud and standout from last year's Logos team, Gunnar Holloway, the son of head coach Nick Holloway, great center and middle linebacker last year. He says, "Go Knights. Look out for Zane the Pain." That's his little brother, Zane Holloway, this year for Logos as well. So, yeah, the Holloway family, of course, heavily involved in Logos football. And so the Knights 7-2. Oakley, I thought just to get to the playoffs was fantastic. They were 0-6. They won 3 in a row to finish the year. They lose here to finish 3-7. Jackson Rice does throw a pair of touchdowns, one to Colbeck, one to Laramie Lara. Those both came relatively late in the contest. But for Oakley, as we transition to our final farewell for the Oakley Hornets, I thought this was a get up off the mat type of season, Coach. And this is really, in terms of the health of a program, Oakley had been on a pretty prolonged losing streak. They went winless last year. They were 0-6 to start this year. So you're talking about a losing streak that's into the teens. And that's where you find out, are my kids just going to quit? And this program is just going to slowly, go away and wither away? Or are we going to find out what kind of resolve we have and get ourselves up off the mat? And that's exactly what Oakley did. And I think this is the kind of thing that can fuel them through the off season. And it wouldn't shock me to see, instead of 3-7, 7-3 next to Oakley's name next year.
Yeah, exactly right. Oakley hit a growth spurt, so to speak, towards the end of the season, gaining some confidence, picking up some late season wins to put themselves where they needed to be. And that growth spurt is going to turn into seniors now, leading the team with that hunger that they have already enjoyed this year. And a lot of times I've seen teams springboard from their final games of the season. And you can delete that Logos game because that's a good Logos team, and Oakley worked hard to get there. But I think Oakley is going to springboard off of these last 3 wins that they've had in this season and really excel through next year, set those goals higher starting game 1, and really start to show that they're not going away this next year.
And look at the 3-star players here: Bridger Conant, Tragan Jones, Laramie Lara, Jackson Rice, all juniors. So that's a good nucleus to build around next year for what could be a breakthrough season for the Oakley Hornets for sure. And then our final game from the opening round here, Coach, on the 2A side of things, was the game you were at. You were broadcasting this game for us on IdahoSports.com. It was Potlatch and Hagerman, and Hagerman defends the South's honor. They prevent the clean sweep for North Idaho White Pine League teams by holding serve at home, 64-20 over the Loggers. What were your big takeaways from this one?
Well, it was lights out and it was nights out, pretty much the night show. Kaysen Knight really showcasing his footwork on the ground, hitting those holes so fast and accelerating right past the safeties for a lot of early scores and early touchdowns to put this one away. To me, he got a small straight on the night if we're playing Yahtzee. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns on the through the air, and 1 win. So that's a 4-3-2-1 for Kaysen Knight on the evening. And Wyatt Mavenkamp also once again showcasing he can do things through the air, connecting with Knight on a couple of those long touchdowns and getting it done. But wow, the run game, the blocking downfield was really impressive from Kaysen Knight on the evening.
He's really gotten stronger and stronger as the season has gone along. And, early on in the season, and because he's only a sophomore, Coach, but he's not built like a sophomore. He is a big, strong kid. He doesn't look like a sophomore out there, but I think early on they were kind of limiting the amount they didn't want to place everything on his shoulders right out of the gate, being essentially a first-time starter at running back and being kind of the main guy. They leaned on Mavenkamp a little more at the start of the year, but I think as they've gotten into the playoffs, and this is Coach Bill Hicks' final season with Hagerman. He's already announced he's retiring at the end of the season. I think he knows the deeper you go in the playoffs, the more you're going to have to lean on that run game. And if Kaysen Knight can put up this type of totals, and then Wyatt Mavenkamp's able to go over the top off play action or a deep ball, I think Hagerman, we saw him early this season kind of stub their toe a couple of times and late against Raft River, but I think Hagerman's found the balance. They're going to be a very dangerous team.
Yeah, you can't do everything through the air. Too many things can happen when you pass the ball and become a state championship team, unless you're Kendrick. I have to rephrase that one for those guys. But if you can run the ball, especially with a guy like Kaysen Knight and some good guys up front making holes and being aggressive, you're going to take yourself as a really late into November run.
Yep. And for Potlatch, Jay Marshall, rushing touchdown, 85-yard kick return TD. Trey McGowan also hit Connor Carpenter for a touchdown there for the Loggers. And for Coach Ryan Ball, Coach Kirkland, I read this in the Lewiston Tribune. He is hanging up the whistle. He had kind of already planned his retirement, and so that was his final game on the sidelines for Potlatch. Very decorated career, not just at Potlatch, but at Kamei earlier this century as well. And so really good 8-man football coach for a long time up in North Idaho.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to call that game between and 2 old-time head coaches, both hanging it up this season between our Coach Ryan Ball and Coach Bill Hicks. Both been around a really long time, and to call their best games to end up like they did was kind of interesting to watch. I got to talk to Coach Ball after the game a little bit, as well as Coach Pat Amos that had been there a long time in Potlatch, and just say hi to those guys. We don't get up north very often, but Potlatch brought a good game. They competed well. They had some good play calls. They did have a lot of plays called back in this game that were first downs. I think even one was a touchdown. Some things that kind of slowed them down a little bit in that first half to stay even with Hagerman, that just kept calling some big hit first strike plays right off the bat to hang with him there. And it was too much for Potlatch to do that in the second half against the Pirates.
Yeah, it's hard to do that against a big, strong, physical team like Hagerman, that's for sure. So here's our final farewell to the Potlatch Loggers. They finished the campaign 4-5. All 5 of their losses were to basically teams that are competing in the quarterfinal round of the playoffs. Kendrick, Logos, Kamei, Prairie, Hagerman. I mean, when your 5 losses came to 5 of the 8 quarterfinal teams, hey, nothing, to lament about that. Ryan Ball wraps up his 8th and final season on the Potlatch sidelines. And yeah, they lose Jay Marshall, kind of the heartbeat of the team this year, senior quarterback linebacker. But I think Trey McGowan will probably slide into that quarterback role next year. And he'll have a really good running back to work with as well, Connor Carpenter, a pair of sophomores that'll be juniors next year, Coach.
Yeah, we call those games, or call those names all night long on the Prepcast there, and those are really amazing players. Jay Marshall could start quarterback on any 2A, 1A team in the state. Really skilled, really a great runner and a good playmaker for Potlatch, and they'll definitely miss him.
For sure. So final farewell to the Potlatch Loggers. And then there were 8 as we look at this 2A bracket, the state 2A quarterfinals here. Again, I tell everybody, make your screen full size so you can read this bracket a little more clearly. We had 4 district champions. The number 1 seed Kendrick, the champions of the White Pine League in District 2. The Notice Pirates, the number 8 seed, the champions of the Western Idaho Conference in District 3. The Grace Grizzlies, the number 4 seed, and the champions of the High Desert Conference in District 5-6. And the Raft River Trojans, the number 7 seed, and the champions of the Snake River Conference in District 4. Just like the 1A bracket, everything gets reseeded 1 through 8 based on the end of season Max Preps rankings. And any matchup between a district champion and a non-district champion, the district champion automatically gets to host. That's why Raft River is the number 7 seed and Kamiah is the 2, but Kamiah's got to go all the way down to Malta to play that game. And just like in the 1A bracket, if it is a matchup between 2 conference champions like Notice and Kendrick, the higher seeded team gets to host that. So Kendrick will host Notice Friday afternoon at the old Lewiston High Bengal Field. Which matchup you want to break down first here, Coach?
Hey, let's go from bottoms up on this one, right? Hagerman and Logos, the awesome rematch coming our way.
Okay, this is going to be the 3rd game of a triple header on Friday at the old Bengal Field in Lewiston. It is going to be muddy. It is going to be sloppy. Kendrick and Notice will get it started at 1 o'clock. Then it's going to be Deary and Tri-Valley at 4 o'clock, and then Logos and Hagerman at 7 o'clock. And oh, by the way, if you got time to kill and you just want to get your weekend started early, you're hanging out in the office with nothing to do, we will have all 3 of those games for you live on IdahoSports.com. You can just tune in starting Friday afternoon and watch 3 really good 8-man games. This will be the nightcap, though. Logos and Hagerman. Coach, these teams met all the way back at the very start of the season, believe it or not. And Logos kind of blitzkrieged Hagerman right off the jump. That was that famous game where Wyatt Mavenkamp was sacked 10 times. 4 sacks from Peter Story, 4 sacks from Josh Prince, and then 10 as a team. The question is, has the Hagerman blocking improved enough against that stout Logos defensive front?
Yeah, that is a great question. Will and Paul and I were at that game early on in the first of the season there, and Logos really came in hammering and had a great game plan and put Mavenkamp to bed, so to speak, early on with those sacks, chasing him all over the place. Kind of the question is for Hagerman's offense, can they shorten those routes down a little bit and get the quick ball out so that doesn't happen again? You know, your line's going to do your best, but sometimes you have to change your plays to make sure that there's a second game plan in action there. I mean, there are some great receivers on the Hagerman side, and 5 yards is 5 yards, and a sack is not 5 yards. And so we'll see what kind of adjustments Hagerman makes on offense.
Yep. And the final score of that game was 34-8. So it's not like, that is a blowout in terms of 8-man football, but, Hagerman only gave up 34 points to what's been a pretty solid Logos team this year as well. So the question for Logos is, have they become more dynamic offensively? And really, that game was played all the way back on August 23rd. So each of these teams is significantly different here. And like you said earlier, the elements, you can throw all the game plans out the window. This is going to come down to, I believe, who can run the best, who can have the best footing between Case and Knight for Hagerman and the duo of Sensing and Covington for Logos, right?
Yeah, the big men up front are going to have to kind of set the tone on this one here, and hanging on to the football may be a critical element as well. Of course, if we're dry and we're just muddy, might be okay right there, but that thing's going to get slick from time to time. And ball security, it could come down to that possession game.
For sure. All right, let's work our way up the bracket then. The game that is going to be on Saturday at this game, it says 2 o'clock on this bracket. That actually got changed today. It's going to be a 1 o'clock kickoff on IdahoSports.com on Saturday. Cammy I making the trip down to Malta to play Raft River. The last time we saw Raft River in action, Coach, it was 2 weeks ago, and it was in the regular season finale against Hagerman, a game that Raft River won by a final score of 42-20 to win the conference championship. I almost feel like, and you've talked about this, all that momentum that Raft River had built up maybe gets stunted due to having the week off with the bye.
It's a long time to remember back and to still have that motivation and that feeling they had in that conference game and win against Hagerman. But Coach Evans is so really focused, and his kids are focused. That's a great program there. They got a lot of tradition, the Trojans do, and they're playing at home, which is always a great advantage. And Camia is almost a Canada, and so it should be an interesting matchup there. And if the Raft River can remember what happened the weeks before and pick up right where they left off and kind of get Cammy stymied at the beginning of this game, I think they'll have their best chance of beating them.
Yeah, we talked about back to that first matchup real quick with Logos and Hagerman. Both of those teams were semifinalists a year ago. So no matter what happens in that game, somebody is making a return trip to the semifinals. Logos, in their school history, they've made the playoffs 2 times. They've been a football program for about 5 or 6 years now. They've made the playoffs twice. Both times the journey has ended in the semifinals. So they're trying to go 3 for 3 in terms of semifinal appearances. Cammy, the last time they were in the semifinals wasn't that long ago. It was 2022 when Dave Clute and the boys got to the semifinals. And for Raft River, they had a lot of success, 10 to 8 years ago. The last time Raft River found themselves in the state semifinals, Coach, was back in 2021. So this is going to be a really good matchup here. I think the question is, which third banana is going to step up? Because we know that, like Cammy, the top billing is like Lawson Landmark, Everett Oatman, and then it's usually like Gavin Shaning or Todd Roberts or Damian Ochoa or somebody. For Raft River, it's going to be Spencer McCoy, and then it's going to be probably like Trace Ward, and then it's going to be, Ruger Ward, Ren Udy, somebody like that. Which group of complementary players can make enough plays? Because the stars are going to deliver here, but which supporting cast will be the best? Yeah,
that's for sure. With Raft River being so diversified, could be an interesting matchup there. And who does Cammy key on the most, because that is a 5-headed monster down there in Malta in the Trojans. But Cammy has been so stout this year. Coming up with some big upsets against Logos throughout the season, and they seem to just be excelling and getting better every game as the season goes along. And I think that bus ride is going to be very focused, and they're going to have to step off ready to play, though, because Raft River is a great team.
No doubt. Okay, to the top half of the bracket, Prairie and Grace. Oh, my gosh, this is a really, really fun matchup. This is actually going to get the quarterfinal round of the postseason started, Coach. Who needs Thursday night football on Amazon Prime? We've got Thursday night football from the ICCU Dome in Pocatello. It says 8:15 on the bracket, but they actually got flipped to the earlier game. So they are going to play at 5:30 on Thursday night on IdahoSports.com because Prairie has the further distance to go between all of the teams that are playing on Thursday night there in Pocatello. Long trip for Prairie. But they got off the schneid. They had their first playoff win since 2020 last week. They crossed that first hurdle. Now they're going to play a really solid Grace team here in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, this is a really quick turnaround for Prairie, having just played, was it Saturday? Was that the game or Friday?
Friday
last week. But nonetheless, still a quick turnaround. But I love those quick turnarounds. Thursday games I love those things after you've already played, because you're still on a high. And Prairie Coast on a high from pulling off that victory against Valley at home. And so Probably not a whole lot of practice going on this week other than defensive reps to make sure you know what's coming at you from the offensive side of the ball, and resting up and getting on that bus and hitting it again, and in the best conditions possible. 70 degrees, dry, and wow, this is going to be, in my opinion, probably the tightest game of the weekend for the 2As.
I think so. This is going to be a fantastic matchup. Prairie has not been to the semifinals since 2020. That was the last time they had a playoff win, prior to last Friday as well. Last time Grace was in the state semifinals was in 2023. They got all the way to the championship game that season. So that is the matchup there. Yeah, as I'm looking at this bracket a little more closely here, Coach, Grace and Prairie may actually be playing on Friday night. There's so many games going on that it's hard for me to keep track of all of them. And so in the comments, pretty sure Prairie plays Friday. Yes, I think you're correct. So all that great stuff we said about playing on Thursday, maybe we can apply it next week if Prairie's in the semifinals.
Yeah, let's have another quick turnaround. Why not? Did it make sense, though, fans? I hope so.
Yeah. Yes, I think the point was well taken. Boy, I can't believe I got the date wrong on that. You know, I my whole week has been a blur. It's that time of year where I've got one foot in football still, but I also have one foot in basketball because girls basketball starts in like 2 weeks. So that's for sure. And yes, that is the late game on Friday night, 8:15 there in the ICCU Dome, Grace and Prairie. Still going to be a really fun matchup. The key to me is, can that Grace offensive line contain what's been a really feisty Prairie defense this year? I mean, we talked about all the stats from that first round win that Lane Mater and Levi McElroy and Quintal and some of those guys made defensively. Can the Grace offensive line hold up against a really active Prairie defense, create some running room for Chase Smith, Gavin Draper, and everybody else?
Yeah, that's just going to be so intriguing to see these two high-powered teams go at each other that have been scoring points and pulling upsets throughout the season and just continuing to get better all year long. Can Coach Draper bring his team with his son Gavin to another semifinal matchup, right? And
right.
That could be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's been a fun season. Yes. I've said all year that, Kendrick has kind of run through everybody in the White Pine League. The last kind of team that maybe could pose a threat to Kendrick, I thought, would be Grace. It's kind of a bummer. They're all loaded up on the same side of the bracket there, but I digress. The final matchup is Kendrick and Notice. How about this in the chat here, Coach? We've got Mark Lungu, the man himself, the he's going to be all conference, maybe all state sophomore running back. Go Notice.
Hey, school spirit right there. That's a captain leader from the sophomore position. But why not? Yeah, I love that, Mark.
And Mark, I'll just tell you, every coach that we talked to after they played you this season was like, oh my gosh, that dude is a wrecking ball. Our guys are sore. They needed to ice down after trying to tackle Mark all night. That's for sure. So, all right, so we know Kendrick coming in is just this dominant juggernaut. What would Notice have to do, Coach, to spring the upset here?
Well, they're going to have to get off to a good start. They're going to have to hang in there for the first quarter and really control the clock. That's really key and critical to make sure you get those first downs. If you get to that fourth down mark, I think you're just going to have to take every chance possible. And just try to convert those fourth downs respectively if it looks reasonable, because when Kendrick gets that ball, they're so high powered and can make some awesome things happen there. And make sure you don't commit penalties that bring back those first downs. That's seems to be what happens with teams that have a game plan and they make a mark. They may be the underdogs, and then that first down that gets taken away. So stay clear of those things.
Yeah, and I do think you really have to chew up the clock. It's almost like it's not stalling like I used to think of like in basketball when a team would just stall, but it is. You really want to use up as much of the clock as you can because Kendrick can score so quickly. You want to limit the possessions if you can. The less times Kendrick has the ball, the less opportunities they have to score, unless, of course, they're coming up with an interception and taking it back for a pick six, which they seem to do a lot this year. So one interesting caveat, I was told that this is the first game of that triple header at the old Bengal field up
I don't know if we're still live here, but it looks like we've lost Brandon. I don't know where he's gone. Last time on our show, the internet cut out, but it looks like he's coming back right now. Brandon, the show's over. We're done.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it kicked me out there. I was going to say the little caveat I heard about Kendrick was that they agreed to be part of this big triple header at Bengal Field, but only if they could play the first game, because they knew that field's just going to get worse and worse as the day goes. So yeah, we'll play in this triple header, but we want the first game. So that was a smart move, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. You want to be on as much green grass as possible, or as less mud as possible, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's make our predictions here, Coach. Quarterfinals, and then we'll pick the semifinals, and then on through to the championship. What are your quarterfinal winners here?
Quarterfinal picks here. Quarterfinal picks. I'm going to go with Kendrick, and then I'm going to pick Grace over in their home territory there in the Dome. And then we're going to go with Kamei on the road. They just seem to be playing so powerful this year. I don't know if Rat River can stop them. And then Logos up north.
Okay. I like all of those picks as well. I think it's Chuck. I think it's Kendrick. I think it's Grace. I think it's Kamei. And I think it's Logos. But what about these hypothetical semifinal matchups? How do you think those would go? Kendrick and Grace. What do you think?
I think Kendrick is going to be the superior team once again over Grace. And they'll get the win. And Logos over Kamei for a little revenge and another state championship matchup against Kendrick Tigers.
Okay, and that was the game. I mean, I think that's the matchup the fans want, Kendrick and Logos, because Logos kind of had Kendrick on the ropes a little bit in the first half of that matchup, and then Kendrick found some momentum in the second half, and that is the only team to have beaten Kendrick during this dynastic run the past couple of years is Logos. I think as much as I would love to see that happen, I think Kamei gets Logos's number again in that other semifinal, and I think it sets up Kendrick and Kamei for the championship, a rematch of the regular season, the game Kendrick won fairly decisively. But that is my official prediction there. Kendrick and Kamei, all North Idaho championship game.
Anything can happen. Yes, that's why we play the game.
That's right. Okay, well, on that note, let me get this bracket off the screen here. Coach, thank you for hanging with us tonight and breaking down all of the games and all the matchups. We're getting out of here at a decent hour. I think it's Will. Will just always, gums up the works here when we're trying to have a nice show.
Will's a good talker, and yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back next season. He's just a sophomore.
Next season or next week?
No, but hopefully next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows what I meant.
Yes, Will. Hopefully he is back next week as we break down all these fun quarterfinal matchups and on to the state semifinals. This weekend on IdahoSports.com, Coach, there are 24 quarterfinal games happening from 6A all the way down to 1A. IdahoSports.com is broadcasting 19 of the 24 quarterfinal matchups. It is a huge undertaking. It takes several broadcasters in every nook and cranny of the state. It is something that we are really proud to bring to the fans. In terms of 8-man football, 7 of the 8 quarterfinal matchups will be on IdahoSports.com. The only one we're going to miss is Garden Valley and Council. But otherwise, all of the other matchups will be there for your pleasure on IdahoSports.com this weekend. So looking forward to it.
That's good stuff. The broadcasters at Idaho Sports always do an amazing job calling the games, as they know these players and these towns and communities really well, and trying to bring the best to each of you in your respective communities and schools. And good luck to all of you.
Yep. Good luck to all the teams out there. We will be back next Wednesday night for our semifinal edition of the Idaho 8-Man Prepcast. Until then, for Coach Lane Kirkland, I'm Brandon Bainey. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, on IdahoSports.com.